Oh, wow. What a good night. You guys ready? Whew. Well, my voice is a little shocked right now because of the, open the doors and ancient doors and clean hands, Seattle get ready, craziness. You see that crazy guy up there? I meant Jake. It really is a privilege and an honor just to be here this weekend and to be with John and to get to hang out with Dan and this amazing pulpit that I have here. And I'm excited, and I'm very excited that I get to be with Jake. No, never apologize for friendship. Never apologize. That Jake is a good friend. We've been doing life together, and for a long time. And I miss our walks in Laguna Beach. And it's just he's got a special place in my heart that not many people have. And I'll never forget one thing conference, and he came to the church that I was on staff at, and just got rocked by God, and we were all getting rocked. And then he went back to his church and got fired. And it's good to be fired sometimes. You're doing good things when you get fired sometimes. So anyways, I've just watched him burn. I've just watched him say yes, and he's been saying yes way longer. He was saying yes before I met him, but I've been able to just watch and just sit back and just go, this is amazing. Watching God breathe on not only Jake, but Nikki, and all the countless conferences. And I remember being in Southern California. We were doing this thing in Torrance, and I prophesied over him and Nikki about a house and all this crazy stuff. And I love doing life with people. So you get the privilege of another chapter in Jake and I's life. That's not, something happens in the spirit realm when you partner together and you just break open the heavens. And there's not many people I get to do that with. And so it's good. It's very, very good. It's something that I don't take for granted. It's something that, I didn't realize the significance of Jake being here and me being here I knew the whole time that Sunday night I wanted to preach a message that has been just pregnant in me for the last couple months. And it's this message on friendship. And Jake's here. Because friends are worth dying for. It's a total popular phrase of, and I understand it. I think it's totally true. And that Jesus had you in mind when he went to the cross, that the joy set before him. And I totally agree with that. But I think when he got that first nail in there and that last nail, that he had Peter in mind. He was thinking about James. He was thinking about John. These are the people that he did life with. These are the people that he had fish tacos with, slept in caves with. And I'm going to just kind of camp in John. I'm going to camp in a couple different spots, but you have in John 15, verse 13, you have where Jesus says that no greater love than this, that a friend would lay down his life. That his friend, and that he laid his life down for his friends. He laid down his life. When Jesus gets resurrected, he sees Mary, and he's like, Mary, don't touch me. I can't talk to you. I need to go and find my friend. I need to find Peter. I understand all the different perspectives and And I mean, it's good. It's good to look at all of the deals. Peter, I'm talking about when Peter denied Jesus 3 times, and you hear the crow, and Jesus prophesies that, or the not the crow, whatever, the rooster, and whatever. Let's not lose the moment, okay? So, anyways, when the rooster goes, and Jesus prophesies that, to then but we kind of miss out on like the human dynamics going on. This is like Jesus' closest friend, and the rooster crows, and they could like I just would imagine like them seeing each other, and Jesus' heart just breaking for his friend Peter. And when he comes back and gets resurrected, he's like, I want to go and see Peter. The first person, I want that connection with me and him to be strong. Like he's hurting right now. I mean, what does Peter do? He says, I'm going fishing. I don't know what the heck just happened. I am going fishing. I'm going back to my old lifestyle. Peter's pretty influential. Everyone joins him. And so they're fishing, and Jesus comes. And what does Peter do? He jumps out of the boat and begins to swim, and his heart leapt when he saw his friend Jesus again. And sometimes we lose the fact that they were just friends. And the power of friendship. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about friendship. I said John, but before we could go into John, I guess. You guys doing okay? By the way, I don't really have any more books left because you guys are all hungry and awesome, and that's amazing. So that gives you a greater excuse to buy all of Jake's stuff or give. I think I have like 7 books or something. So just go buy them or just skip my stuff. I'm fine taking 7 books back with me, and you buy all of Jake's stuff. Or you should give him $1,000, and he'll cover any song. He just told me he'll cover any song for $1,000. You're laughing, but I'm being serious. He really did tell me this, that's one of the gifts or whatever. I don't know if that's public knowledge, but oops, erase that from the recording. But seriously, if you give $1,000, he'll cover any song. I mean, let's just be creative. What kind of song could you come up with? Call me baby? Call me maybe. Okay. All right. Whoop, there it is. I mean, we could do all kinds of crazy stuff. Who let the dogs out? I'm loving this. I mean, yeah. Can't touch this. Too legit to quit. Can you just do an MC Hammer, Vanilla Ice album? Come on, can we get $10,000 for this? Oh my gosh. Jesus, help us. Okay, we're just skipping John. We don't have time for John right now. Jesus had time for John. We do not have time for John. Jesus took care of him. Turn to Proverbs 17. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. Everyone here with siblings would say this is true. A friend loves at all times. Turn with me to Proverbs 4. Wealth makes many friends, but the poor man is separated from his friend. I love the book of Proverbs. I try to read a proverb a day. It keeps the doctor away. And, I mean, there's so much revelation in the book of Proverbs. And so, wealth makes many friends, but the poor man is separated from his friend. See, we're in America, we kind of have reduced wealth to money, to, it's all about the Benjamins. And definitely money is a manifestation of wealth, but there's so many different manifestations of wealth. And friendship is a manifestation of wealth. And for me, I decided a long time ago that I want to be a wealthy man in the areas of friendship. I want to be as wealthy as I possibly can be. That I want to be a man that fights for friends. And so we have this whole thing about relationship, this whole thing about friendship. And we need to understand that friendship could sometimes be inconvenient. Friendship could sometimes, you can't build friendships based on agreement. I go into a place, I go and speak, and somebody will start asking me questions like, the host pastor or whatever, and they're asking me questions about theology, and they're trying to get my perspective, and I'm like, whoa, wait a second. Can we please have a heart connection before we continue more talks about, like, what's your theology, what's my theology, you're checking me out, and I don't really want to check you out, I don't need to check you out, I want a heart connection. And if we could have a heart connection, then I could tell you all the different things that I believe in or don't know if I believe in. But as long as I have your heart, I feel good. As long as you know my heart. That's what my greatest desire is that I want a heart connection. And so I'm never looking for, the friends, the alliances that, like, who agrees with me. And it's a bummer in this whole place of friendship where you have your BFF. They're on your Fab Five, phone list or whatever, and your favorites on your iPhones, and you're prophesying over each other. You're like knitted at the heart, and you're sharing tubs of ice cream or whatever. You're sharing about what guy you like or whatever. I don't know, but I mean, you're doing life together, and then you have this thing that severs the relationship, this whatever it may be. Maybe disagreement, it may be jealousy, it may be whatever. Where maybe you blew up the bridge. And you did life with that person for 3 years. You were never supposed to do life with people for only a season. We have to be people that say, you know what, we're going to fight for friendship. That we're going to be people that do not blow up bridges. People that restore bridges. People that say, hey, I'm here to communicate my bridge is open for business. That I wasn't supposed to only have friends for a season. I wasn't supposed to only have BFFs where we do life together for a year or 5 years. And then, boom, bridge explodes, and I start finding other best friends. See, what happens is when you have a best friend and you go through a hard time and you go through a hard season and the bridges, the foundation is cracking, and you say, hey, this is me being really vulnerable. Man, there's some cracks here. You want to help me fix? Let's fix it together. And then that bridge gets stronger. And this is hard because, we're kind of becoming known as a generation, or really we've become known as a generation that divorce rate is crazy high, and it's like, man, we don't, it's acceptable in our culture to blow up bridges. Oh, it's okay. Let me pat you on the back. Yeah, you're totally justified for blowing up that bridge. Oh, yeah, you got hurt. And like, yeah, I understand that. But you're not a victim. You're not powerless. That you're not someone that says yes. You're not the one that throws the dynamite on the bridge. That doesn't mean that you're powerless. That means you're not you're voiceless, and you can't communicate, and you can't confront with love and honor. You still address where the hurt is. You're not silence of like, oh, I got to keep this bridge open. I keep on getting run over. But it's when you can look at each other and become vulnerable and transparent that the bridge gets stronger. It's when you fight for bridges. This is something that I've been saying yes to for a long time. Ever since I was a little kid, I just loved having a heart connection with people, love just spending time with people, pouring into people, them pouring into me, just running together. I remember being in high school, and I was always leading people, and everyone wanted to be led, but I was like, hey, I want some people that I co-labor with, that I run with. And I felt so alone because I was always the pastor's kid, and I was always the spiritual one. I was like, no, like we're all spiritual. Come on, let's go together. And then I began to find people that just loved Jesus with this scary love that was contagious, that made me a little nervous. And I was like, I like that. I like feeling a little nervous. I like being around crazy people that are crazy for Jesus. I think I shared this in one service, but, I married my wife because she's more in love with Jesus than I am. And what's good is that she married me because I'm more in love with Jesus than she is. That's her perspective, and that's called equally yoked. That we, we're both scary. And it's good to have friends like that. That when you connect your heart with your friends, when you get knitted at your heart, that they have these crazy dreams. If I'm just being transparent with you, Jake is talking about this thing, and my first thought is, how can I help him? How can I partner with? How can I say yes to the dream that he's carrying right now? I'm thinking about people I know. I'm thinking about all this different stuff, and it's like, man, because my heart is knitted. When you get around, when you connect your heart with people, they have these crazy ideas, and in your mind you're thinking, I don't know if that's going to work, but out of your heart, your mouth speaks, and you're like, come on, that's what you were born for. How can I help you? I'll never forget being with Lou Eagle. We were in the airport, and in the airport, Lou still does this. In the security line. Sir, can you take off your shirts? Yes, I can. Do you need me to take off my belt too? He's got the craziest abs in revival. I've told him, I've teased him, I said, dude, you need to come up with an ab workout. So anyways, we're in the line, and he says to me, we're in the security line, and he's like, Chad, the Lord just spoke to me and told me to go on a 10-day fast to launch my 40-day fast. And I'm thinking in my head, what in the world are you thinking? That's the spirit of stupid. You don't go on a 10-day fast to launch a 40-day fast. No, Lou, you got it wrong. Let's go to Vegas and let's get a tent and we will camp out like an all-you-can-eat buffet bar and we will feast for 10 days to launch your 40-day fast. But out of my heart, because my heart is connected to Lou, out of my heart, I find myself saying where I almost want to grab the words and shove them back in my mouth. I'm like, Lou, that's God. I'll do the 10-day fast with you. But you need friends that dream big. And what happens when you connect your heart, when you get knitted in your heart with their hearts, it's like there's something come alive in you that says, yeah, that's what you were born for. How can I help you? And so I'm going to talk about David and Jonathan. That is where we are going to camp. 1 Samuel 18. You can turn there. Man, this Bible is huge. 1 Samuel 18. Oh my gosh. The whole thing about David and Jonathan, I go and prophesy over people and I'll pick out two guys. Pick up two guys. Wow, what the heck was that? And anyways, I'll pick out two guys and I'll say, stand up. And I'll say, there's a David and Jonathan anointing on you guys. And you can see both of the guys. They got their eyes closed and they're both saying, I hope I'm not Jonathan. I hope I'm not Jonathan. I hope I'm not Jonathan. Like, God, I'm David, right? I'm David at this relationship. And I think Jonathan gets such a bad rap. Jonathan gets such a bad rap that Jesus says the greatest love is laying your life down for your friend. And I know all the different types and shadows that Joseph has, David has, of who Jesus is, but I believe that Jonathan had some of the greatest characteristics of who Jesus was. That he laid his life down for David. Jonathan's the man. I love Jonathan. The guy takes out Philistine outposts, and the guy just is a warrior. He's awesome. And so I want to just talk about the relationship between David and Jonathan a little bit. Now, when he had finished speaking to Saul, the soul of Jonathan was knitted to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. Saul took him that day and would not let him go home to his father's house anymore. Then Jonathan and David made a covenant because he loved him as his own soul. And Jonathan took off the robe that was on him and gave it to David with his armor, even to his sword and his bow and his belt. It's pretty amazing. So what's going on there other than Jonathan stripping down? What's going on? See, we need to understand what's happening, what's taking place. Jonathan, he was born, from the moment he was born, his whole identity was, you will be the next king. We're going to train you, we're going to pour into you, you're going to have teachers, you're going to have all these instructors, all these mentors, all these people are going to be giving you wisdom, giving you, to set you up for success, and that you're going to sit at meals with your dad. You're going to sit at breakfast, at dinner, where your dad's going to say, son, this is how you carry yourself as king. And now he's a teenager, and he sees David, and he says, man, the anointing that I thought I was called to carry, it's not on me, it's on David. And the only other person that saw this was Samuel, who's arguably one of the greatest prophets of all time. Obviously, John the Baptist is the greatest because that's what it says, but Samuel's pretty amazing. Every prophetic word he gave didn't fall to the ground. It's pretty awesome. And Samuel almost missed it because he called for the sons of Jesse, and he said, and he was looking, and he thought, man, okay, God, who is it? And the Lord said to him, hey, you need to go get David. There's still another one. That I don't look through the outward. That I look in the heart. And Jonathan actually had eyes to see what was resting on David. And so he takes off his robe, which communicates to everybody, this is the next king. Whoever wears this robe is the next king. They're next in line. He takes off this robe and he places it on David. Crazy. See, when you are knitted at the heart with someone, when you are connected, when you're a BFF, when you're running together, there's no competition, there's no comparing yourself, there's no like, oh man, what? And it's interesting, the people that God calls you to run with, they will probably have a similar anointing than you. And what will you do when they get promoted before you do? Will you cheer them on? Will you get excited? Like, oh my gosh, this is what we've been waiting for. And Jonathan's response when he sees this on David, he's like thinking, oh my gosh, this is perfect. I have this wealth of wisdom. I have this, years, over a decade of preparation to be king. And now I am connected to the heart with this man that's called to be king. And I'm able to give him an impartation. I'm able to give him my wisdom. I'm able to give him my resources. I'm here to help him to step into that place of being a king. Because we're knitted at the heart. His breakthrough is my breakthrough. I'll never forget, I was about ready to get married, and I was, asking God, help! I was asking God, give me revelation about marriage. I want some encounters, all this stuff. So I have this encounter with the Lord where I Julia's in Brazil, and she leads 10,000 people to the Lord in Brazil. And I'm in India the same day, and I get to see 10,000 people get healed in India. And I see the scribe, this angel, he's writing down. November 18th, 2018, Chad saw 10,000 people get saved in Brazil. And 10,000 people healed in India. And I'm like, whoa, you got the facts wrong here. I'm the one that was in India. Julia was the one in Brazil. And the angel just begins to laugh. That's right, angels laugh. The angel began to laugh, and he looks at me and says, Chad, you don't get it. That you are one in the Spirit, that when she breaks through, you get the fruit, you get the breakthrough. And it changed my whole perspective on marriage, that I have to have the spirit of stupid to not set up opportunities for my wife to step into her destiny, because when she steps into her destiny, I'm stepping into my destiny. I'm stoked that 5 people are excited about it. They were probably married people, I would imagine. But it's true. And I believe that Jonathan knew this revelation. He's like, this is perfect. As Dave steps into his destiny, I'm stepping into my destiny, that we're running together. There's not this fight for the throne. Like, no, this is what you're anointed for. And then I get to be alongside of you, that we get to step in this thing together. We're going to turn to 1 Samuel 20. I think we're stepping into 1 Samuel 20. You know, not a lot of people understand that Saul was put in a pretty bad situation. I mean, not Saul. Jonathan was put in a pretty bad situation. Jonathan was put in this love triangle where he had to choose, either choose his dad or choose David. I mean, this is a pretty big deal. And for some reason, I can't find the part that I want to read. Jesus, just help me right now, because I'm really, really drunk. You know, what happens is, I can't find it for some reason, but it's Naomi's Bible. I don't have my Bible, and it's horrible. My wife stole my Bible. She did. She said, I'm so sorry, honey. I took your Bible. I left at 6 a.m, and she said, I took your Bible out of your bag because I wanted to read it. I was reading a Lonnie Frisbee book. She was reading the Bible, and we both fell asleep. And she had to take me to the airport at 4:45, and she forgot to throw it in there. But anyways, that is the reason why I can't find the scripture right now. But anyways, moving along. Saul talks to Jonathan, and Saul begins to tell him, you're putting shame on your family line. By choosing the son of Jesse, you're putting shame on your family line, that you're putting shame on your mother, that this is your opportunity for your kingdom to be established forever. Verse 30 of 18. That's what I thought. I knew it was in 20. There we go. Boom. Thank you to the man in the third row. Then Saul's anger was aroused against Jonathan, and he said to him, you son of a perverse, rebellious woman. That just does not sound like fun. Do I not know that you have chosen the son of Jesse to your own shame and to the shame of your mother's nakedness? For as long as the son of Jesse lives on the earth, you shall not be established, nor your kingdom, nor therefore send and bring him to me, for he shall surely die. Okay, so what's going on? Saul is trying to stir up in Jonathan an emotional response. You're bringing shame, your mother's nakedness. You're bringing shame upon your family. This is your opportunity. Don't let it slip by like I did. He's trying to give his son the wrong kind of generational inheritance. Because this is what Saul couldn't hurdle over in his life. That he had opportunities for his kingdom to be established forever because of the fear of man and because of that man-pleasing deal that he couldn't conquer, that Samuel said, bummer, this was your opportunity. Now God's going to raise up another, a man after his own heart. And so Saul is telling him, you need to make a decision. Are you going to choose your family? Are you going to choose your identity, your anointing, or are you going to choose David? You need to bring him over here. Help me kill this guy and make sure that my family lineage is going to, carry the throne. So he's put in a really bad spot. I mean, I think we need to understand this. I mean, he loved his dad. This was hard for Jonathan. Verse 32, and Jonathan answered Saul his father and said to him, why should he be killed? What has he done? Then Saul cast a spear at him to kill him, by which Jonathan knew that he was determined by his father to kill David. Now that's a sozo moment, if I've ever seen one. Where was Jesus when your father was hurling spears at you? I mean, this is a bummer. I mean, Jonathan actually chooses to be with his dad in battle and dies with his dad. I mean, it's not like he had all these father wounds, hated, was rebelling against his dad. Like, he had a love for his dad. But he chose his friend. He chose David, where he was like, no, I'm not going to blow up this bridge, Dad. I'm sorry. I'm not going to blow up this bridge. You could try to get an emotional response. You could try to do the junk that's in your life, trying to put it in me. I'm not going to take ownership of that. That's your stuff. I am running with this guy. I'm knitted in my heart with him. I love what God's doing at Bethel Church, and it's an awesome privilege to be on staff there. And I get this opportunity to see. Everyone talks about the crazy staff of Chris Valentin, Bill Johnson, Danny Silk, Charlie Harper, Paul Manwarren, all these awesome guys. And what we need to understand is, like, people ask, like, man, I want that in my church. Like, can I get that in 5 years? Can I get that in 10 years? Like, I've got all these, Bill and Chris's, I'm the Bill of my church, and I've got these Chris's and Danny's and Paul, and, and we're going to be there in 5 years. And I'm like, well, and that's the one thing about relationship that I think about. That you can't speed up supernaturally. It's time. You have Bill and Chris. You have Bill, who is a pastor of 200 people in Weaverville. You have Chris, who's a mechanic. You have Danny Silk, who is a butcher. You have Charlie Harper, who is a real estate agent. And they're just doing life together. Just saying yes together. And that's what makes them unique, is that they've been running together for over 30 years. That's something that you can't speed up. Yeah, God could blast you and you get knitted at your heart, but and that was amazing in Samuel 18. But you have some Samuel 20s going on, 20, 30, where you have some life decisions to make. You have some tough decisions of, am I going to choose more? I'm going to invest into that relationship. And that's why I love choosing this place of friendship, that it's got to start somewhere. Let's say maybe some of us, we don't feel like we have, those friendships that were knitted in the heart. Well, when it starts, just get really excited, because this is where it starts. This is the first year of 30 years. I remember being 21, and I graduated first year, and they were asking us, like, what do you want to take from the school ministry? And people were saying, I want a relationship with Chris. I want a relationship with Danny. I want a relationship with Bill. And And the Lord speaks to me and says, Chad, look to the person behind you. Look to the person to your left and right. That is tomorrow's Bill and Chris. Start now. And so those people were Joaquin Evans, Chris Overstreet, a couple other people that you don't know, but I do. Bobby Brown, he's one of my best friends. And so I said yes to these guys over 10 years ago. And then I moved to Southern California. Relationship now becomes a little more inconvenient. I got to be a little more purposeful. I'm calling them on the phone. I'm emailing. Sometimes it's tough because they're busy, I'm busy, and I'm like crying out something in me. It's like, man, I said yes a few years ago. I don't want it just to like become a surface level friend. I don't want it to just be someone that I say like wave to. I want to go deep with this person. And through the different, stages of life that you have to keep saying yes. You could say yes once, but I'm telling you, in marriage and just with friendships, there's going to be seasons where it's going to be a little tougher, and you got to say yes. You got to have a value of like, I want to be a wealthy person. I don't want to keep going around the mountain of having 3 years of best friends, and then the relationship gets severed. Bummer. And that's why I love that Jake Hamilton is here. Is because I said yes to that man. About 8 years ago, 7 years ago, I said yes to what God was doing in his heart. And then I would drive to Rancho Cucamonga. He would drive to Laguna Beach. It's not always convenient. He'd have his kids running around. We'd just take walks and go get gelatos and just talk about nothing and talk about everything. That man I'll stay up till 3 a.m. with, just talking. I know it's kind of a harsh thing, but I probably won't stay up till 3 a.m. with anybody else in the room. But I will stay up till 3 a.m. with him. Because I've said yes to him. That we're doing life together. It's something that I value. It's something that I protect. When things, we talked about a little bit about, paying a price or sacrifice. And sometimes, when you have a value for something, the enemy tries to attack you. And when I was a teenager, my parents were pastors, and this family got radically saved, and these brothers, they became my best friends. They lost their dad to cancer, and we kind of adopted these kids into the family where they would come over. Their names were Vinny and Chris. And so Vinny became my best friend. Chris and I were pretty good friends, but Vinny and I were best friends. We were like brothers. And so they'd both come over when I was playing basketball. They'd come and eat at my house. When I was, away on trips, they would come and stay at my house without me even being there. I mean, they became a part of the family. And they had older brothers that were like, 7 years older. And they would, they were doing drugs. And so they started influencing Chris and Vinny. And then they started doing drugs at like 11, 12 years old. And then so I kind of watched them kind of doing drugs, and I was on the outside looking in. And then I was about 12 years old when I decided to do drugs with Chris and Vinny. I began to do drugs with them, and I started making some bad decisions. And we were just going after, it wasn't good. We were making bad decisions. But we had this friendship thing still going on. It's just all in the bad context, all in the wrong context. And I had several things happen to me from 12 and 13 and 14. And when I was 14 years old, Jesus comes into my bedroom. And he says, Chad, you're either going to be my best friend or I'm going to hand you over to Satan. And I knew what that meant. That meant that the hedge of protection on my life was going to be lifted. That I had several times where I almost got killed. I had a drug dealer, pull a gun on me, and the gun jammed. I had another time I was in a hot car, I was in a stolen car, and the cables, the car stalled, and so I went down to see what was going on with the cables. The moment I went down was a rival drug dealer, because I started to deal when I was 13 years old, and he went and shot into the window, and he thought, actually, with me going down, he actually thought he shot me in the head. That's how close the timing was. And so I got stabbed. I got all kinds of crazy stuff. Don't worry, this only happened a few months ago. It's okay. So anyways, Jesus comes in my bedroom and says, I'm either going to hand you over to Satan or you're going to be my best friend. Which one is it going to be? And I just wept, and I said, I've always known you're the truth. You're the life. You're the way. I've always known. And I was just in rebellion. I would actually see Jesus crying in the corner as I was doing drugs. And I said, I just don't care. That I felt like I was born into this. It wasn't my decision, and I was just in this place of rebellion. But when Jesus walked in the room, it's just like I knew I was in a place of decision where I either was going to choose him to be my best friend or I'd be killed. I'd have full right for Satan to kill me. So I just wept. He put his arms around me, and I just began to weep. And then suddenly, it's like all the spirit of addiction, everything just lifted off. And that experience, that salvation experience of becoming a new creation, I mean, it happened. The bummer thing is when you have a life of making bad decisions, of blowing up bridges all around you, and then you have the salvation experience of becoming a new creation, no one else gets the memo. So I get to church. That was a Saturday night. I get to church. I'm all fired up. Like, yeah, let's worship. Let's get this friendship thing going. Everyone's like crying. And this one person spit in my face and said, you're ripping your family apart. And I'm like, oh, what's going on? I just done. That was the old me. I know that was only 12 hours ago, but that was the old me. So my dad calls me up to his bedroom. And he says, Chad, where is it? Where's the money? My dad just had his birthday. Someone gave him around $600 for a new pool table. And it was stolen. So he says, where is it? Now, I had stolen from my parents a bunch of times. And me and Vinny had stolen from my parents. But this time, I didn't steal. I'm like, Dad, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't steal any money. I'm so sorry. I didn't steal. And he's like, no, I know you took it. And he's like, well, if you didn't take it, who would have? And I said, well, maybe Vinny. So we go over to Vinny's house. He's not there. Mom's screaming at us, saying, you better not touch my son, all this sort of stuff. And my dad says, well, where is he? You know where he is, don't you? And I'm like, yeah, we would always go party at this girl's house. And so he says, take me there. We drive over there, and we pull up. There's about 20 people in the front yard. And these guys are crazy. They're all doing coke. They're all doing speed. They're just really crazy. They actually enjoy getting into fights. And my dad looks at me. Now, you need to understand what my dad was trying to do before I go further in the story. My dad was trying to sever the connection. He tried to tell me, you can't hang out with Vinny. And how I got caught was my parents were on date night, and Vinny came over to my house on Saturday night. And we were doing drugs. And my parents came home early, and they saw me and Vinny went running. And so he knew that me and Vinny would be sneaking around, and he wanted to make sure that never was going to happen again. So this is what my dad said. Probably didn't go about it the best way, but this is what my dad said. He was just a father that loved his son. So with that in the context, he said, Chad, you're going to beat up Vinny. So we get out of the car, we're walking, and I'm thinking, Jesus, I just asked you to come into my life. I know about you. What would you do in this situation? I don't think you would beat Vinny up. So what would you do in this situation? We walk up. My dad says, this is what's going to happen. My son is going to beat the living tar out of Vinny. And if any of you have a problem with that, you can fight my son right now. I don't care if it's all of you. And my dad, his veins are popping out. So these guys, these 20 guys, they look at me, they look at my dad, they look at Vinny, they look at each other, and then they all leave. Leave Vinny all by himself. So we begin to talk to Vinny, and we confront him, and he begins to cry and said, Kevin, I would have never taken that money. You've been like a father to me. I lost my dad. You and Teresa have been like a mom and dad to me. I never would do that. And somehow he gets out of me beating him up, which was really good. I don't beat him up. So we go, and Vinny's really hurt. Vinny's hurt about he's really hurt about what happened. He now feels rejected. He feels like he just lost his family. So what he does is he calls my dad the next day, and he's really hurt, and he's carrying some hurt towards me. So he's like, I know how to get back to Chad. He calls my dad and says, Kevin, I want to confess. I took the money, but I did it with your son. My dad hangs up the phone. He just begins to weep. And he says, I knew it. He says, there's one thing I can't stand is someone that would lie to me. Why would you lie to me? And I'm like, I never took the money. And it caused this hate in me for Vinny, where I hated. Can I say that again? I mean, I had dreams about killing him. I would go out and I would look for Vinny. My freshman year, I get delivered from drugs. Everyone's getting into drugs in high school. I get out of drugs. I'm like trying to be this Christian, and I'm carrying anger and hatred inside of me. So I got rid of the drugs thing, but now I'm like, dealing now with this hate thing. And then I would go and find Vinny, and I would beat him up. This is the special speaker. So sophomore year, freshman year passes, sophomore year, New Year's Eve, I go to this Christian concert. It's New Year's Eve. We're driving back, and we see this car accident where this car hits this telephone pole, and it's wrapped around this telephone pole, and we're like, man, whoever's in that car didn't make it. And so I go to basketball the next day, and I get home. My parents say, Chad, we need to sit you down. We need to talk to you. They sit me down. I'm going, oh, no, what's going on? What did I do? And they said, there was a car accident last night. Your friend Justin was driving. They were doing nitrous and speed, and he was the one driving, and he hit a telephone pole going 80 miles an hour and punctured his heart, died instantly. You need to know about Justin. Me and Justin collected comic books when we were in 5th grade. And I was the one that introduced him to drugs. I was the one. Now, this is Justin, who I would collect Batman comics with, Superman comics with. And now I'm sitting in my living room, 15 years old, hearing about how he's dead. Because of me introducing a life. So the girl was in a passenger seat. She went through the windshield. She was in ICU, but she was going to survive. Vinny was behind the passenger seat, and he had the nitrous tank on his lap. The nitrous tank hit him in the face, took off most of his face. They had to sew his nose back on, and he went into a coma, punctured his lung, and his brain was swelling. And because of him being in a coma, they couldn't do anything for his lung. They couldn't do anything about his, that. Because of him in a coma, they couldn't treat him in any way. Because every time they would try to treat him, his brain would swell more. He needed to come out of his coma. So the doctor was giving him less than a 10% chance of living. I go and say, I need to get out of here. I went to the beach, went surfing, and I'm just crying out to God. And the Lord says, you know what you need to do. You need to forgive Vinny. So I'm like, all right, I get back, and I tell my parents, you need to drive me tomorrow morning to the hospital. I need to forgive Vinny, and I need to ask for forgiveness. That night I go to sleep, and I have a dream that I'm back when I'm 14 years old, and Jesus comes into my bedroom and says, you have a decision. And my response is different. I look at Jesus and say, I don't care what you say. You're not going to control me. You're not going to manipulate me. I'm going to make my own decisions. And then I was in that car. And I was behind the driver's seat. And I died and I went to hell. I wake up in a cold sweat. I go downstairs and I see my mom in the living room. And she is weeping. And I'm like, Mom, what's going on? She said, Chad, I had a dream. I had a dream that you didn't change your life and that you were in that car. And you were behind the driver's seat. And you died and you went to hell. And I know that if I didn't choose Jesus, I would not be here. And it was like that seat was reserved for me. So with that in mind, I go to the hospital, and I'm thinking to myself, I've got to deal with Vinny's family. They know what's been going on. They know that I've been looking for, we've been having this feud, and I've been, beating him up, and he'd go get other his friends, and they'll try to beat me up, and there's just crazy stuff going on. And so I get there, and his whole family sees me, and they embrace me. They grab me, and they hug me, and they begin to tell the doctors, this is his other brother. You need to let him in. So I get taken into his room. He's hooked up to the machines. He's got all these, cables, all these crazy stuff, the heart monitor. And so I go in there, and he's like yellow. He's got all this yellow stuff all over him, and he does not look good. You can see infections coming and going through, and it does not look good. And I say, Vinny, this is Chad. And he begins to shake. He begins to go crazy. His heart goes crazy. The heart monitor goes crazy, and he's like shaking. The nurses come and grab me, and they say, he heard your voice. He knows you. He recognized your voice. And I'm thinking, yeah, he's probably thinking I'm in there to kill him. So he calms down, and they bring me back in. And I sit right next to him, and I just begin to weep. And I say, Vinny, it so hurts my heart to see you like this, to see you in this condition. I'm here to tell you that I love you, that you are my brother. And that I forgive you. I forgive you for falsely accusing me, for lying to my dad and saying that I stole the money with you. I forgive you. And I want to ask for forgiveness that I've carried hate towards you. That I've carried anger. That really what I desire, what I want, what I long for is that I would only love you. That you would only know that I'm someone that loves for you. I am so for you. I'm just weeping. And I said, Vinny, it's not too late. Jesus is right there. He's got his arms wide open. And all you have to do is run to him. And let him wrap his arms around you. Let him just embrace you. So I pray for him. I leave. And we get a phone call a few hours later, where they tell me that Vinny comes out of his coma. A couple days later, I talk to him, and he says, Chad, I heard your voice. And the moment you said, Jesus is there, I suddenly saw him, and I ran, and I felt like I was running forever. I felt like I was running for days, and then suddenly, I get to him, and I wrap my arms around Jesus, and he wraps his arms around me, and it was like I was suddenly sucked into his heart, and that was the moment I came awake. See, we need to be people that fight for friends. I know that there's some in here where you have friendships that have been severed, and it was years ago. And maybe they falsely accused you. Maybe they hurt you, and you're justified. But you can't stay in that place. And they say, time heals all wounds. Got to let a little time go a little further. And then it suddenly transitions to, oh, that's been too much time. It's passed. And I'm here to tell you that now is the right time to rebuild bridges. Jesus tells us in John that the world will know that we are his disciples and how we love one another. That's all he's asking for. And if the world would say, who is the church? Well, there are people that judge. There are people that shoot their wounded. But we're known to be people that love one another, that lay down our lives for one another. That doesn't mean that you're looking to go get martyred for your friends. Like, what does laying down your life for your friends look like in your everyday life?